Hi, I'm Stephen Hawley Martin, and this is part 4 of a series of videos based on my book, Life After Death, Powerful Evidence You Will Never Die. The feedback I've been getting tells me these videos are interesting and compelling, and the reviews the book has received from those who've actually read it indicate the evidence presented is indeed compelling. That continuation of consciousness following death of the body is difficult to refute. But some say, okay, I buy it. Thanks for the good news. Doesn't that mean everyone goes to heaven? Why should I shell out $3.49 for your Kindle book? Or $11.95 for the paperback and take the time and expend the effort to actually read it? Well, I say, good question. And I have what I believe to be a good answer. First, the evidence I present indicates not everyone goes to heaven, and that a hell-like realm indeed does appear to exist. It also strongly indicates that a lack of knowledge about life after death and what to expect when your turn comes can be a reason you may become stuck in a less than desirable place after death. So what about the thin veil, and what Cotton Mather called a world of wonders? Well, with the age of enlightenment and the widespread acceptance of Thomas Hobbes' theory that nothing other than the physical, material world exists, most educated people stopped believing that evil spirits exist, and that they might actually make mischief with the living. But we now know that consciousness continues after death. So what do you suppose happens to the consciousness of evil people like Joseph Mengele, who was an SS officer and the evil doctor at the Auschwitz concentration camp during World War II, who conducted horrible experiments on live patients? Or Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, the serial killer and sex offender who murdered people and then ate them. Their spirits are somewhere on the other side of the veil, still going strong. Now, in the 21st century, more than one psychologist has come to believe evil spirits do exist, and that they do cause problems for the living. An example, among others, is Dr. Wilson Van Dusen, a university professor who has served as chief psychologist at Mendocino State Hospital in California. Based on decades of research and time he spent treating patients in mental hospitals, Dr. Van Dusen believes many patients are possessed by malicious spirits, and that those who hallucinate are often under the control of demonic entities. Dr. Van Dusen claims he has been able to speak directly to demons through some of his patients, and he has published more than 150 scientific papers and written several books based on what he has observed and learned. In one of his papers, Dr. Van Dusen wrote that he sought out individuals from among the hundreds of chronic schizophrenics, alcoholics, and brain-damaged persons he treated who were able to distinguish between their own thoughts and those of what other mental health professionals would have regarded as the patient's hallucinations. Through these patients, Dr. Van Dusen would question the so-called hallucinations and instruct his patients to give a word-for-word account of what the voices answered. In this way, he was able to hold long dialogues with the patient's hallucinations and to record both his questions and the entity's answers. Dr. Van Dusen found that the so-called hallucinations would sometimes take over a patient's eyes, ears, and voice, just as in traditional accounts of demonic possession. The entities also had different personalities than those of his patients, which clearly indicated to him that they were not the products of his patients' minds. Often, an entity would threaten the patient and even cause physical harm. Dr. Van Zeusen dealt with several thousand patients during his 20 years as a clinical psychologist and made detailed studies of more than a dozen cases of demonic possession. Although not all the patients were, in his opinion, possessed, he wrote that the entities were present in every single one of the thousands of patients. He also said some of the entities he communicated with were far more knowledgeable about certain subjects than he was, and that he was able to test them by looking up information in obscure academic references. One thing to learn from this and to remember is that if a voice inside your head tells you that you're a bad person or that you ought to do something you know is wrong, such as harm yourself or someone else, that voice is not coming from you or from God. That voice is an evil spirit that is not part of you, and you need to shoo it out of your mind. Tell it you're not interested and to stop bothering you. If you're a Christian, say the Lord's Prayer or the 23rd Psalm, because such action is known to drive evil spirits away. That's just one of the many things you need to know. In part 5 of this series, I'll deal with heaven and hell and why some people get stuck in a place after death they'd rather not be, that is neither heaven or hell. Subscribe to this channel if you want to be notified when it's published. Or better yet, read my book. A link you will find in the description below this video on YouTube will take you to the book's page on Amazon.